Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. This is Tom Raftery with the Technology for Good show, and my co-host Chris. Chris, say hi.
Hi, Chris Kernahan, Principal Consultant of Bluefin Solutions, and regular co-host. Sorry for being away the last couple of weeks, but thank you for having me back, Tom.
Not at all, not at all. Good to have you back, Chris. Yeah, we're on episode 76, if I remember correctly, or is it 77? It's 77, actually.
77.
77. Oh my God, I'm losing count.
As long as you're not losing the will, that's okay.
I'm not losing. I'm losing the sanity. That's a whole other issue, though.
Well, after the week we've had, I'm not surprised. Long week in Barcelona.
That's right. So for anyone who's unaware, both Chris and I were in Barcelona this week at an SAP Tech Ed event, and there was some interesting conversations had there. There could have been a lot more, but we won't chase down the lack of SAP execs there. We won't bring that up because that might that might cause waves, and God knows we don't want to do that.
Yeah, no, it was a good week actually. I wasn't there quite as long as you. I was just handling the keynote demo that we were doing for Bluefin, but it was it's always great to catch up with the people that we know in the ecosystem. There's some people doing some really, really cool stuff, and people we only get to see maybe once or twice a year.
Correct.
Always good to see people.
Exactly. And as you say, I was there for most of the week just because I was scheduled to do the judging on the InnoJam on the Monday afternoon.
Yeah.
Literally afternoon. It started at 12, and I was scheduled to give a talk on IoT and energy on the Thursday afternoon. So I had to stay the whole week. Yeah. But there are worse places to be for a week than Barcelona. Let's be honest.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like yourself, I was scheduled to do the judging. Unfortunately, I had a clash. But I didn't even get the demo jam. I'd left at that point. But the whole point of the InnoJam this time was it was utilities. It was
energy.
Use cases, energy and utilities. And how did they actually finish up? In terms of that, so they were each given a use case, and they were developing it on SAP Technology Jam, HCP, and IoT, and all the rest of it. But what was there one that really stood out for you? That and what was their use case?
So there were a couple that were very good. I only saw so the way the judging was done was there was 6 challenges.
Yeah.
And each challenge was assigned, so there was 6 challenges, and there was 18 teams.
Yes.
So there was 3 teams per challenge, and there was 2 groups of judges. So the judges were said, so one group of judges were given challenges 1, 2, and 3, and told go off and get a demo from those on doing challenge 1, 2, and 3. So they saw 9 teams, and then I was on judging panel 2, and we were looking at challenges 4, 5, and 6. So we saw again 9 teams, and a couple of them were pretty good. One of the challenges which was complex was around demand side management, for example. There was another one around making people aware of how much they could do with renewables if they had them.
Okay, yeah.
Versus conventional, and actually on that challenge there was a group of Spanish developers who came up with a really, really comprehensive take on that challenge. They did a real stand-up job on it. I understand, because I didn't get to go to the demo jam either. I understand though at the demo jam, their enthusiasm and their ability to run with all the technologies and roll out the comprehensive solution that they did for the judges didn't translate onto the main stage, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's always a tough one. It's always a tough one, and even during the judging, I judged them in Las Vegas. It's sometimes you got to have the vision to see what they're trying to get to, because once they actually go through, they've got another day or two to actually polish it a bit more, to finish it a bit more. But it's certainly I like the way they've done the demo jam and the inno jam this time and giving us proper use cases. I was talking to Craig afterwards, and I think one of the things he would like to do is actually get industry use cases, as in industry players.
Well, that makes sense. For this one, they approached me and asked me to send them a few challenges, so I did, and it was nice. It was nice. Several of the ones I sent were actually became the challenges that were given.
Yeah, excellent.
So that was nice. Anyway, we better crack on with the stories.
Absolutely.
We could be here all night.
I try. Sorry, I dropped something.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Oh,
so,
Jesus.
So as usual, we have a truckload of stories to talk about. Some of them are really interesting. We have some bad news, and we have two bad news stories this week, and I don't like doing that, but I thought they were both important, so I said I'd put them in. We'll go through them quickly, and then we'll move on to the good news. So the two bad news stories are the first is the global warming has passed what they call the critical 1 degree mark, and basically we've decided as a group of nations, 167 countries decided in Copenhagen at the climate conference in 2009 to sign a treaty saying that we would try and limit global warming to 2 degrees centigrade. Well, we've just passed the first one of those 2 degrees. So we're kind of halfway there. So that's the first bad news story. It is bad news, obviously. We really, I don't know how we're going to get back from that. We're not. No. It's just bad news. And other bad news coming out of Greenland is talking about this glacier, this huge glacier, which is called Zachariah Eystrom or something like that. I'm not quite sure in the pronunciation, but it's an enormous glacier which is breaking up. And it's melting at the rate of, if I remember correctly, here it is, 4.5 billion tons of ice a year it's losing. Yeah. And basically they're saying, look, this is going to give us half a meter of sea level rise in the next few years. So, I mean, that's half a meter is 1.5 feet. Yeah. 36 inches of sea level rise. Now we're still talking over decades, but that's, I mean, up until now, the sea level rise as a result of climate change has been at a kind of rate of 3 millimeters per year. Yeah, no, it's. I think for me the scary thing is it's actually detached itself from its stabilizing sill. Yes, exactly. Which means what the change is actually happening is now permanent. Yep. This glacier, it's now just going to decrease in size. If it hadn't detached from its stabilizing sill, you could make the argument if temperatures decreased, it would actually increase, grow again. But now that it's detached from its sill, all that's going to happen is it's just going to flow down and then into the water. Yeah, and that's it. It's done. Yeah. No, it's which is nuts. And they're saying there was another one to the north of it, which is in a similar situation, which is you're kind of going, oh no, really? Oh crap. I know. Anyway, those are the bad news stories. And as we say, we do it every week, and generally try and limit it to one. But there were two important ones I felt needed to be talked about. But there is good news. The first piece of good news, and this is fantastic, is that the International Energy Agency said that renewable energy made up half of the world's new power plants in 2014. Yeah, I mean that's phenomenal. What I'd like to see is obviously it making up more than half, and we're going to get there. But Ian Tain has just said he's watching us. Good man, Ian. Nice to have you on board. But it's no, we want to see it above 50%. Absolutely, but if you look at the countries that are driving that, we have China, we have India. Yeah, we're not seeing the US, the UK. We talked before the show that the article in the Guardian that
of the G7 nations, the only one that has increased its fossil fuel subsidies is the UK. And yet they're still trying to tell us on the BBC this week that they're going to make their 2020 targets, which just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's stupid. It's embarrassing. It's just nonsensical. But this is awesome. You know, when you look at the pie chart.
Yeah, that's true. I'll just scroll up a little bit there.
You know, you look at it. It's
let me bump it up there for you.
Yeah, so you have you've hydro at 15. You've got wind at 9, nuclear at 12. I think the PV is a little light at 4%.
In the UK?
No, that's a world generation.
Oh, sorry, you're right. Yeah. So yeah, no, the solar at 4 is low, but the cool thing about it is it has enormous capacity to grow, and the price of solar is going through the floor, as we've said many times before. And places like India and China are going hell for leather to roll out solar plants. India have said they'll roll out 110 gigawatts. That's the equivalent of 110 nuclear power plants worth of solar in the next 5 years. And China has said they'll roll out 70 gigawatts, so 70 power plants worth of solar in the next 2 years. And apart from the solar, China's commitment to 70 gigawatts of solar, they've also committed to 150 gigawatts of wind.
Nice.
So the amount of renewables is has passed the 50%, yes, in 2014, yes, and that's fantastic. But it's even going to go higher and higher. And India is going to be an interesting place to watch, because India is at a point where it's kind of at the bottom of one of these growth curves, these kind of hockey stick curves, because it's not a heavily industrialized country, but it's starting to become so. And the amount of energy that it's going to require, the amount of generation facilities they're going to have to build in the next 10 years is enormous. They're kind of behind China a couple of years on that kind of curve.
Yeah.
And they're doing it at a time when solar has become cheaper than all other forms of generation.
Yeah.
So I can see them going hell for leather on the solar one and becoming a solar superpower in 10 years time.
Yeah. No, well, we have it. Morsi, isn't it? He's in the UK at the moment. It was his Modi. That's who it is. His desire to have 100% solar, because he's from Kerala, and that was one of the commitments that he made when he was
Prime Minister of Kerala.
Yeah. So it's absolutely, India is the next big economy to look at in terms of what it does with its energy generation. We've seen massive changes in China, which is phenomenal. India is now the big one, so it is to look for.
True. So the next story, and again, more good news. This one, a research team has invented a way to use shockwave-based process for desalination of water. Now, desalinating water is always a big problem, and coming up with a more efficient way of doing it is huge for places like as we talked about beforehand, California, but also Israel and a lot of Middle Eastern countries that rely already heavily on desalination. Dubai have massive desalination plants, and they're extremely energy intensive operations, and they use membranes and filters basically for desalinating the water. And they get clogged very quickly, and it's a messy process.
It doesn't matter which way around you use the energy. If you use the energy directly in the process through electricity and electric desalination, or whether you use membranes, somewhere along the way there's a massive energy input to make it work. And part of the problem is the fact that water itself is just such a good solvent. The ability to dissolve salt, sodium chloride, is just absolutely phenomenal. But this actually is quite an interesting one.
It is. So they run a shockwave across the salt water going from left to right here in this image. And the shockwave going through the pipe there sends the brine up to the top part of the pipe and the fresh water to the bottom. So you get physical separation. It's done just as simply as that. Yeah. Now you need electricity obviously to generate the shockwave, but compared to the kinds of energy requirements for traditional desalination, apparently this is far more efficient.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is that if you're sending a shockwave through as a single pulse, then it becomes hugely interesting, because you can actually use things like supercapacitors actually to do it. And one of the other things about it is that a supercapacitor, a capacitor itself will actually charge from the electrostatic that's actually in the air. Which is one of the reasons why capacitors are actually so dangerous. They need to be grounded unless they're actually in use. So in theory, actually, depending on the amount of shock or the amount of current you actually need to go through, and you can actually charge it out of the air and just send a pulse through without actually needing much of an external power source. But that's taking it way to an extreme. But it's really interesting to think about the art of the possible you could do there.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. It is. It is. And the kind of places that could benefit from this are enormous. Yeah. North Africa, Middle East, Southeast Asia, California.
Yeah, well, all those places you move. If you do stuff in the desert and things like that, there's a massive amount of, whenever you look at dust storms and sandstorms, there's a massive amount of actual static electricity generated in those storms.
Yeah.
You could literally charge an entire bank of capacitors using one of those storms and actually inject that. But the trick is actually getting the capacitor to discharge A, uniformly, and B, not in 1 millisecond pulse, but actually stretch it out a bit. But they've been talking about that for a while.
All right.
So they have. But anyway.
Yeah, we'll truck on. So the next story is a good one coming out of Los Angeles. And it talks about how the city authorities in Los Angeles are running a trial where they are running on their LED lampposts. And they have 160,000 LED lampposts in LA, which is enormous. That's a huge number. That means they've swapped out on their lampposts the traditional incandescent light fixtures for LEDs. And they're saving 63% on their light energy bills as a result of that. So equivalent to $8.8 million and avoiding 47,000 tons of CO2. But what they've done now is they're teaming up with Ericsson to put LTE, so 4G routers on the lamp posts. They're starting off with 100, I think it is.
Yeah,
and they're called Philips Smart Poles. So they're manufactured by Philips using Ericsson 4G technology. So the lamp posts will be throughout the city. And they'll be just dispersing LTE to places, and they're going to target places that have poor cellular coverage to start with.
Can they do it outside my house, because I have awful cellular coverage and I need a new lamppost?
They absolutely can if you move to LA.
No, I don't want to move to LA. I don't want to move to LA. No, that's class. I love the fact that it's saved them 8.8 million, and they can actually earn more money for the city because they can rent out that LTE band.
True.
Let's face it. They're not. The smart pools are. But then I suppose it's Philips getting the money because they own the pools. It depends on who actually owns the pools, whether the city owns them or whether Philips own them. But yeah, it's. Like the mobile in the States, like telecoms in the States, is just a nightmare. Yeah. So it's such a on the one hand, it's a very fragmented market. It's not consumer friendly and it's cartel driven. But you could really see that with the way that 3G was so badly implemented, and then we now have they've done really well with 4G. Like most places have 4G, but 3G was just awful. But seeing this sort of stuff's really cool. So it is. Think of all the things you could do with that. All the IoT scenarios, all that type of stuff.
One of the things I was thinking you could do with it is in those poles that have, power and connectivity, add in some air quality sensors.
Yeah.
And start sending that data back. It's not at street level, but still, it's still good and useful information.
Well, it's not a million miles away from street level, so isn't it still? But then again, is it that high?
So it's going to be at least 3 meters off the ground.
Yeah.
Unless you site the sensors lower down, which I suppose is a possibility. But most people's heads are at about 1.5 to 2 meters, that kind of ballpark, and that's the most important place to be measuring, really.
Yeah. True. But then again, there's nothing to actually stop you putting the sensor that far down, actually, but having the connectivity going further up.
True enough.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll keep going. Changing topics a bit now. I mean, we've been talking about connectivity and that. Bluetooth is we're coming up with a new version of Bluetooth in the next year, and this is news coming out of the Bluetooth Special Interest Group, who are kind of like the group who maintain Bluetooth, who decide what's going to happen with the Bluetooth standard. And it's interesting news because what they're saying that's going to come to Bluetooth next year is it's going to increase its range by 4 times, so 4x. So right now it has a limit of about 330 feet, but they're going to multiply that by 4, so you're going over 1,000 feet.
Yeah.
Also, it's going to get a 100% increase in speed, which is cool, and they're going to do that without requiring more energy to do it. Excuse me. And lastly, they're going to allow them to become mesh networkable. So,
nice! That is very nice.
Exactly. So, if one device can talk to another, then it can pass on information. So it's 3 nice things, and a lot of this speaks to a war of standards for short-range communications between the likes of Z-Wave, Zigbee, and Bluetooth. Yeah. There is no one clear winner yet.
No, there isn't.
Although Bluetooth is looking stronger at the moment. Z-Wave is run by a single organization, and that's always a bit iffy. Zigbee floundered for a while on the kind of standard side of things, and Bluetooth has been going from strength to strength, from what I can see.
It's like the Z-Wave and the Zigbee. Certainly, the Z-Wave has the benefit of history behind it. It's the oldest protocol there, but we are seeing a lot of competing standards. But Bluetooth itself has also a protocol with a large history behind it, and a very, very solid developer ecosystem behind it as well.
And a huge slew of devices with Bluetooth functionality built in.
Exactly. There's the old, I don't know if you remember it, there was the episode of The Big Bang Theory where they were building little sort of flower clips for Penny for her online business, and then they decided that they were limiting their market to only women or people, and they decided to do it for men, and they were trying to work out how they were going to do it, and their answer was to add Bluetooth, because obviously everything is better with Bluetooth.
That's one of the very few episodes I appear to have missed.
It's really, really funny. So there is, but yeah, everything's better with Bluetooth. I got really excited when Bluetooth 4 came out for the very simple reason that it was ultra low power, because whenever you consider your wearable, is attached to your mobile device, so you're all the time, that is a large drain on your battery. So having that low power. So whenever they talk about all these great advances without increasing power, I hope they're talking about Bluetooth 4 and not Bluetooth 3. I would assume it's Bluetooth 4.
I would assume so. I mean, you'd have to think it has to be the next kind of. They have to be referring to the current standard, and they're improving on that rather than they're improving on one from 5 years ago or whatever.
Exactly. But the mesh network, I love the mesh networking thing. That's awesome.
It is. It is. We'll move on because we've got a few more stories, and
we do.
Yeah. We're still doing okay on time though, so that's pretty good. So this is a topical one for us, Chris, because it talks about improving the way that they do Hangouts, and of course we do this show using a Hangout on air. It doesn't say specifically whether this will be for Hangouts on air or just Hangouts or both. So I'm not quite sure what's going to happen there. It doesn't go into a lot of detail, but basically they're saying that the Hangouts platform is going to be improved. The video will be crisper. Not sure exactly what that means. The interface will be tweaked. The video chats will load faster and render more sharply too. And then it says they're rolling it out incrementally. So if you haven't got it yet, don't be surprised. It will get there eventually.
Yeah. It's. You know, I love Hangouts, I really do, but when I'm away, I actually use FaceTime more. I find it more reliable on Wi-Fi networks, especially ones that I don't own. So I do find it FaceTime slightly easier to use. So I hope things, I guess, will actually make Hangouts better because both that, Lorna and I are on Android phones, but we use, I use FaceTime because it's on the iPads and Anna can hold the iPads, but it means that I have to carry my iPad with me. Yeah. So, but I'm looking forward to it. The Hangouts has changed so much. So it has. Whenever we first did Hangouts, when Google Plus first came out, and the difference it is now, absolutely phenomenal. So
it's true. I think it still has a long way to go, though. The Hangouts. I mean, scheduling is not straightforward.
Yeah.
It should be possible to set a time and have a distinct URL. And have it work on a schedule, and simple stuff like that. It's just still not been rolled out. However many years later.
It's that's I'm not scheduling you. This is your Hangout. This is how you're scheduling it and things like that. So this is a what's the word I'm looking for? A feature or a lack of feature that you're missing. So fair enough. No, good point. Yeah, good point.
Sue Cohen is making a couple of points there. She's saying that she saw an electric toothbrush with Bluetooth in it, and she thought how meta. And I've seen those as well, and there are a couple of manufacturers now of toothbrushes making ones that have apps associated with them, so you can see on the app how well you're brushing your teeth, where you need to make improvements, and those kinds of things. It's the real first world stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
So we'll keep going. The next one on our list of stories is this one about how the Google self-driving car is. I mean, we've seen pictures of them. They're kind of like this little bubble car. They don't have a steering wheel, and they don't have a brake pedal. And one of those cars, when it was out driving around this week, was pulled over by the Mountain View Police Department for going too slowly.
Yeah.
It was doing, I think, 23 in a 35 zone.
Yeah.
And the policeman was, giving out because it was holding up traffic, and that was why he pulled the car over.
How do you pull over an autonomous vehicle? I'm curious to know.
It has to have sense for that kind of stuff built into
Yeah.
it. And if not, I'm guessing what happens is it knows enough to say, okay, I'm in trouble here, I'll need human assistance, and it kind of rings back to base.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of it. The people in the article kind of tries to say that, in fact, they quote Google as saying, we've capped the speed of our prototype at 25 miles an hour for safety reasons. We want the cars to feel friendly and approachable rather than zooming scarily through neighborhood streets. But that's not entirely the truth of the matter. It actually, excuse me, it actually happens that the amount of regulations and documents you need to fill out, if you're producing a car that goes less than 25 miles an hour, are minuscule compared to the amount of documents you have to file if you're producing an autonomous car which goes in excess of 25 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So Google looked at these two numbers and said, yeah, we'll keep it below the 25 miles an hour and have our lawyers busy looking at other kinds of legislation rather than, throwing them at this problem.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Definitely. They went for the biggest payoff with the least amount of effort, which was keep it under 25, fill in the much shorter document,
yeah,
and then actually get the thing working.
Correct.
So, yeah, no, that's all good. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just saying, so we need to go on to the next story. If there's something you had relevant to that you want to know.
No, nothing.
All right, cool. So the next story sticks with Google, and let's see, I get this screen sharing thing up. So it talks about how in Google Maps, they're now allowing you to download a map of an area and not have to have a data connection. That functionality has been now rolled out on Android, not on iOS yet. But if you have Google Maps on your phone, and you have a hard time following the maps, or you're afraid you'll be going through an area with low coverage, this is something you need to think about and get down, because the version that they've just released will work without a connection to the grid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it's something we've needed for a while. I look at we were in Barcelona obviously this week. Yep. So if I didn't, I'm on 3, so I can use my data without any issues. So that's fine. But if I was paying a horrific amount of money for data, it would be extremely useful for me to be able to download a map of Barcelona and then use that for offline navigation.
Yeah. I think you can do that with things like Nokia here.
You can.
Waze as well would do something like that. So it is an interesting one. It's great functionality because, I mean, if you think of places where there is very little connectivity, the requirement for GPS is always fantastic. I mean, it's always game changing wherever you suddenly give people access to GPS. It allows them to do lots of things they could never have done before. So, if I'm thinking of sub-Saharan Africa, if I'm thinking of Southeast Asia, places like that are getting loon balloons and things, this is going to be huge for them.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
I'm sure that's why it went Android first for the change. Even though it's Google, a lot of the times the stuff they roll out iOS first. Yeah,
no, absolutely. But it's something I'm really happy that it's happened. They've been talking about it for a long time.
Yeah.
So now they just haven't. So cool.
Well, so move on. The next one, and these are actually two related stories, so I'll put the two of them in together. Microsoft opens a UK only data center following the safe harbor ruling of a couple of weeks back. So I saw that story, and then I also saw this one. Microsoft is building data centers in Germany that the government cannot touch. And basically, what those stories are saying is that since the safe harbor document has been thrown out by the US courts, cloud providers like Microsoft and Amazon and IBM and so on and so on now need to break up their traditional data centers and have lots of potentially smaller data centers in lots of different venues, lots of different countries. And the reason I said these two stories were linked is because the second story comes out of Germany. And Germany, well, Microsoft in Germany have decided.
You've gone back one. You need to go back one. You've jumped. You've jumped one story ahead.
You're right. This one.
Yes, that one.
So yeah, Microsoft have said that in Germany, they're getting a third party to manage their data center, so that and to completely run the data center for them, so that if there is a request from US law enforcement for access to data in the data center, they can legitimately put up their hands and say, not us, we can't do anything. It's this German company, you need to talk to them. But of course you won't have jurisdiction because it's a German company.
Yeah. It's really, really good. It's really, really good. And you know, a lot of places, you know, especially the US government and the Department of Justice, have had it far too easy for too long, using things like safe harbor and using the idea that a company, a person like me in the UK buying a service from a US company is somehow subject to US law. Yeah. Because of that, rather than the national law of the country in which I reside. And this is a return to that sort of idea. And when the European courts threw out the safe harbor law, because in direct response to the Snowden revelations, it sent a very, very powerful message to the United States, basically saying, you can't do this. You know, you have to. You know, you're not able to access everybody's data whenever you want, in a blind way. And we see lots of countries updating their own laws. You know, in the UK we have the update to the Regulatory Investigative Powers Act, or the Snoopers Charter. Yeah. Some of which is good, some of which is bad. And then we also have you know, Germany and Spain. Like, is Spain updating their internet laws? I think they are.
They've made a number. They've made a number of changes, and they plan to make more. The good thing is that we have an election coming up, and some of the laws they passed are likely to be repealed. Frankly, most of the opposition parties have said they will repeal those laws, so that's good, at least. Yeah, but it's amazing, because on the one hand, you see Microsoft, you see this investment and in their data centers and all the rest of it, and you know, data centers bring good money, good jobs, and things like that to places, especially when you're using renewable powers or renewable power and things like that. There, it is a significant investment in a location. So you know, the fact that Microsoft are doing this and other companies are doing this really just speaks to the fact that they take this stuff really, really seriously. Yeah. No, it's true. And sticking with Microsoft, they're doing something else which is pretty cute as well. Oh yeah. This was one of the most interesting stories, I think, that I came across this week. And I mean, we've talked in the show before about blockchain and how interesting a technology and how potentially massively revolutionary a technology is. And you know, that's not a term I use lightly, but it's a technology underpinning some virtual currencies at the moment, but also capable of doing so much more, because it guarantees that something happened, something you want to be able to say happened for definite. This allows you to do that. Oh, Karine Tillotson has just joined us. Hey, Karine, how you doing? Hello. So it's not easy to roll out blockchain. It's you know, it's a technology that's been around almost 10 years. And it's quite tricky. It is it's quite tricky to comprehend in the first place. Never mind putting a blockchain infrastructure in place to set up a blockchain of your own. So what Microsoft did was they said, well, why don't we do that? Why don't we take that pain away from people, set up a cloud-based blockchain technology pointed at a particular vertical and let them off. And that's what they've done. They've stuck it on Azure, obviously. That's their own cloud-based platform. And it allows people, as they say in the article, an opportunity to fail fast, fail cheap, working with blockchain.
Yeah, no, it makes absolute sense. We're seeing more and more banks becoming interested in the blockchain technology, not the cryptocurrencies, although they are still interested in them, but this whole blockchain, this decentralized ledger that records everything, is just absolutely phenomenal, and it reduces the ability for fraud and things like that. So from that point of view, it makes, I can see why they want it. I can see why they're going for it. And when you expand it out beyond pure finance, you take it to the FDA, you take it to pharma. If for every product that's actually produced, if you can create a blockchain identifier for each product, it means you can tie every product to a batch, to an inventory run, and everything like that. And it's unforgeable.
Yeah.
So it is. It's unforgeable, which is absolutely, it's phenomenal. And it's so cheap because we've experimented with holograms and things like that there, and QR codes and all that sort of stuff. This is something that you can put as a barcode. It relates to your blockchain. It just is so cheap and easy to implement. But there you go. That's just.
No worries.
I'm a little excited about it. Can you tell?
I tweeted about it, and I mentioned it on Facebook as well. And I think I said it was, one of the most interesting stories I've seen this entire week. And it is. And the idea of rolling it out on the Azure platform and saying, "Have at it, guys." I think that's beautiful. Yeah,
absolutely.
So speaking of cloud platforms, the next story is a consumer play rather than a big finance play. And it talks about this thing called Up There. And I can't remember if we've mentioned Up There before. I know I've read about it, but I'm not sure that I've actually decided to mention it in the show. And basically what Up There is it's a company that makes applications, cloud-based applications. And they've got two at the moment. They were mentioned here somewhere. Search is one.
Yeah.
But they've got the ability to add photos and add your computer. So basically, when you use your camera and the Up There application for your camera, it doesn't save local copies of your photographs. It saves them to the cloud.
Oh.
And the same with any files and folders. You create an Up There folder on your desktop, and you add all your files and folders to it, and it sends them all up to the cloud as well.
Nice.
So it's the thing that's missing from it is the pricing model.
Yeah.
But how expensive can it be?
I don't know. It does look very, very nice. So it does like it's been going since 2011.
Yeah.
So it has it's one of those ones that's sort of been hanging under the radar a little bit, but I must actually have a look at it and see how feature rich it is, because these types of services that have been going for that long actually are really quite exciting. So they tend to be quite feature rich and very, very useful.
Yeah, I mean, this is like a Dropbox solution, but and a Dropbox solution of like 5 years ago when they were hungry.
Yeah,
and they're they're allowing you to sign up for betas right now, but I don't think they're giving out access very widely yet. Anyway, I know I signed up for a beta from them about 3 weeks ago, and I've heard nothing back yet. So we'll have to wait and see how that goes. And all these things take time because they want to scale it up at a manageable rate.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
The next cool story I saw was one around wearables, and we've talked about wearables a lot in the show as well. What this one is it's called a Chronos.
Yes.
It's a little disc that you put on the back of your watch. So you can see here, it's a little silver disc.
Yeah.
With an LED going around it, which you can hide, and you clip that onto the back of your watch.
Yeah.
Like this guy is doing here, and then you wear the watch as normal, and it becomes the smarts in the smartwatch for you.
Oh.
So you don't need to get a smartwatch. This makes your watch a smartwatch.
Oh, no, I like that.
Yeah,
I definitely like that. Like, my because I did have the problem with Lorna. So Lorna bought me a nice watch, an Omega Seamaster, and really loved it. But I knew I would have to deal with the fact that at some point I was going to get a wearable. So how I would actually, buy myself a wearable and not offend my wife at the same time. So if I hadn't known about this, I could have saved myself a very difficult conversation.
and a lot of worry and anguish, and yeah.
Exactly. So, but it does. It looks very nice. It does say that on the metal band you do need to take account of the extra girth, but certainly it's it is a very nice.
It's a nice solution.
It is a very nice solution. It'll be interesting to see where they take it next. Because it's only $99, which isn't a lot of money. So it isn't. And
compared to the Tag Heuer smartwatch launched this week at something like 1,500 or 1,600 US dollars. So yeah, no, compared to that, it's dead cheap.
It is, and I love my Omega. I absolutely do love my Omega, and it's a nice watch. And so having something like that would enable me to upgrade it to actually be able to do more. So I can get my notifications, I can do my steps and things like that. Yeah, no, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I like that.
It is. So the next story that I thought was cool was this one from Nvidia, and I don't know if you saw this one, Chris. It talks about a new mobile supercomputer that can make, as I say, machines smarter. Basically, this is about the rise of the GPU and how the GPU is kind of starting to take over hardware in devices. Yeah, they've got this one called the Jet. Where is it there?
It's the
Jetson TX1.
Yes,
that's what they're calling it, the Jetson TX1, and it's got some machine learning capabilities. They've got a developer kit for it. It pushes a teraflop of performance, networks via 802.11 AC. It's under 10 watts of power draw, and it ships with Linux installed.
Yeah.
The retail price is $599, with educators and students getting one for $299 if they want it.
Well, it's whenever you actually start to look at you start to look at big data and things like that there. The math coprocessors or the processors that are in GPUs are absolutely built for mathematical operations. So when you start to look at something like this here and coupling that with big data and that sort of stuff, it's just absolutely phenomenal. It is the big data equivalent of the Raspberry Pi. Yeah. That's what it is. Like that. If that keynote demo, for example, that we did at Barcelona, we had a 12 terabyte Hadoop cluster, 101 nodes running 12 terabytes. Our Amazon bill was $500 an hour. we had 100, with 1,600 cores, and we had 12 terabytes of RAM, which was just that. Yeah, we were running $500 an hour. So you can't. That was insane. But something like this would actually give you a really, really nice test bed, where and then you can scale to that $500 an hour type play. So this is the GPU, or the big data equivalent of a Raspberry Pi, which is phenomenal. And even at $599, that's brilliant. So there you go. So
that makes a lot of sense. The next story is out of Pocket. So for anyone who uses Pocket to save stories, and I use it quite a lot, one of the big advantages of using Pocket is that it's very easy to use. You've got extensions for it in lots of different applications. You've got little buttons that you can put into browsers, and it works very simply. You find a nice story, you think it's interesting, you just click the little drop into Pocket button. It just drops it into Pocket, and Pocket just saves them all in one place, easy to find subsequently. I use it for saving stories for this show every week, for example. One of the problems that I've always had with it for this show is the fact that there's no easy way to share the stories that you've saved there. So what they've done now with the new beta version, which is downloadable, I downloaded it this morning and tried it out, and it works great. What they've done with the new beta version is it allows you to hit recommendations on stories that you save into Pocket. So if you're looking at a story, you think it's cool, you just hit the recommend button. And that way you then generate a feed of recommended stories, and anyone following you gets to see those recommended stories. So it's a very nifty little thing. I can see it being useful for lots of people. Do you use Pocket yourself, Chris? Is this something that would be interesting for you?
I drift in and out of Pocket, but I think you've hit the nail on the head. Actually, sharing is difficult.
Yeah.
So it is, and that's one of the reasons why I never really played with it that much. We curate a lot of content.
Yeah.
One of the things about content curation, it's not just for your own consumption; it's also sharing out beyond yourself.
Correct.
So that's the trick. The easier you make that, the more people are going to use your platform.
Yeah, because I mean the other application that I use for sharing that kind of stuff is Flipboard. So I have a number of magazines in Flipboard themed around technology for good, for stuff for this show, themed around climate, energy, science, and health. And I drop stories in there. So I do the two. What Flipboard wins on is presentation of the stuff that you share. So, I mean, Flipboard was built for people to share stories and have them look good. Pocket was built for you to kind of, have somewhere to leave stories to come back to later. Yeah, so they were built with scenarios in mind.
Well, that was what it was originally called. It was called Read It Later.
That's right.
So, which was a phenomenal service. So it was very, very nice.
Yeah.
So I have a hard stop at 5. So I do so. But
okay, we've 2 stories left. We've 2 stories left, and they're quite simple. One is another Microsoft story, and it talks to their application OneNote. And OneNote, I only started getting into OneNote when they made it available for the iPhone last year. I want to say it was, and I find it very good because it's available on the desktop, the laptop, the iPad, the iPhone. I don't have an iPad anymore, but I have my laptop and I have my desktop and I have my iPhone. So I can be taking notes at an event on my laptop, for example. I can read them later on the iPhone. I can read them later again when I come back to base on the desktop.
Exactly.
So what they've done now to make it even better is they've added the ability to do audio recording.
Oh, nice.
So I can be sitting in at a briefing, for example, or at a conference, and open up OneNote on my phone and just say, add an audio recording, and it'll just start listening.
Yeah.
So as I'm taking notes on my laptop and putting them into a note associated with that briefing or conference or whatever it is I'm at, I can have the text being typed in note form and also be recording it for listening back later. And I'll have both the audio and the text notes I have. So in case I miss some point, I can listen back to it later.
Yeah, yeah. Now that is really, really cool. So I'm a big Evernote user, and the user interface between Evernote and OneNote is very, very different.
It is, and
very different.
I think OneNote is improving their UI. It's gotten better in the last, I don't know, since they moved over to the Mac side, it is after getting better.
Yeah.
I remember seeing it on the PC 5 years ago, and it was nasty looking. But now it is after improving a hell of a lot. They've also added things like file attachments. You can insert file attachments. You can embed video, and there was another thing on OneNote for iOS. They've added the Force Touch thing for anyone who has an S6. So
yes.
there's some nice. Oh, and they've a OneNote badge for Android as well, so you can have it on screen and get straight into OneNote on Android very, very easily. So they've been busy. And then the last story, very quick one, is that the Firefox browser for iOS has finally been released. And
Yay!
Yeah, exactly. This was a long time coming, and they did release it a few weeks ago on trial in I want to say New Zealand, if I remember correctly, and they've now gone ahead and released it globally. It's interesting, and it's particularly interesting for anyone who uses Firefox a lot, because you can, share logins, share browser history, share tabs, all that kind of thing.
Exactly.
But on iOS, we've had that with Safari and Chrome for a couple of years at least. So, unless you're really strongly wedded to Firefox, it's probably a little too late for a lot of people.
I don't know. Well, the interesting thing is that Firefox did update their engine not that long ago.
Mm-hmm.
So they did, and it's actually improved the Firefox experience, definitely on the desktop. So
okay.
I know quite a few people who moved from Chrome on the desktop to Firefox, especially developers and people like that. They actually find the developer tools so much better. So this just gives them a seamless experience again.
Yeah, and
the ability to share,
and that's hugely important. And I from time to time will do a test of browsers to see, because there's always memory issues, and you always want to get the one that consumes the least amount of RAM.
Exactly.
So if at some point I decide to go back to Firefox again, and it's not unfeasible because I do change reasonably often.
Yeah.
If I do decide, at least now, I don't have that as a stopping point for not going to Firefox. I can have it on the phone as well as on the desktop and the laptop. So that it is good. It is good.
Absolutely.
All right, that's the last story, Chris.
Yes, it is indeed. It is indeed. So some great stories this week, and thank you very much for having me. I know I have to go and jump on to another call. So hopefully for a very, very exciting piece of work next week. So
awesome.
Yes, I will tell you all about it at some point. So I shall. So thank you very much. Have a great weekend, and talk to you next week.
Thanks. Talk to you then.
Cheers. Bye.